Statements by members. Déclaration des députés. The honourable member for Palliser.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as the proud representative of the Palliser riding, I know firsthand the economic impact of the fertilizer industry in Saskatchewan and indeed across Canada. Canada's potash sector accounts for 40% of the world's potash trade and contributes more than $6 billion annually to our economy. This sector delivers more than 25 million metric tons annually to feed our country and the world, in addition to employing 12,000 Canadians in high-skilled, high-wage jobs. I'm proud to relay that my riding boasts some of these jobs at agri-retailers like Avonlea Wigmore Crop Production, as well as facilities for multinationals like Yara and the Mosaic Company. Mr. Speaker, our government is proud to support the fertilizer industry and will continue to contribute to this vital sector of our economy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Thunder Bay Superior North.
Mr. Speaker, in the 1980s, the worst preventable health crisis in Canada's history occurred when 30,000 Canadians were infected with HIV and hepatitis C. Thousands died because profit took precedence over public health. The Creever Commission subsequently recorded that blood is a public resource and donors should never be paid. The Ontario government is poised to pass the Voluntary Blood Donor Act, excuse me, Mr. Speaker, to prevent private companies from paying blood donors. But this government's not taking action. For example, in 2012, Thunder Bay lost the only standalone blood plasma clinic in Canada, and 30 skilled employees were fired. Now Canada may be forced to import plasma that's been paid for outsourcing jobs, putting our blood supply at risk. I call on this government to promise Canadians that they will not license any private pharmaceutical companies to pay for plasma or blood. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Notre-Dame-de-Grâce-la-Chêne. Mr. Speaker, the government has chosen to use the surplus by cutting services for Canadians and reducing taxes to the wealthiest families. Single-parent families will not benefit from this at all. They're simply excluded. According to the Health and Social Services Agency of Montreal, 1/3 of the island's families are single-parent families. In my riding alone, there are almost 6,000 who will not receive any benefit from this.
An income splitting will not help a single mom trying to make ends meet. Not just that, it does nothing for the vast majority of middle-class Canadian families. In fact, 86% of families won't get a dime. New Democrats have concrete proposals that would help millions of Canadians, such as a plan for affordable childcare and a federal minimum wage. Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, Canadians can clearly see which side of the House is working to make things more affordable for their family, and they will know that in 2015.
For Saskatoon, Rosetown, Bigger.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday morning, parliamentarians were privileged to attend a special ceremony at the National War Memorial to commemorate the commitment and sacrifice of our incredible men and women in uniform, as well as to honor the memory of all those who have made the ultimate sacrifice on behalf of Canada. Next week, we will be back in our ridings to attend local Remembrance Day services. This year, I am honored to be joining veterans, community leaders, and youth at a Remembrance Day ceremony in Saskatoon, where I will lay a wreath to honor those who have given their lives for our country. Saskatoon's Remembrance Day ceremony is one of the largest indoor Remembrance Day services in Canada and provides an opportunity for the residents of Saskatoon and surrounding areas to commemorate the sacrifice of those who have died for our freedom. I encourage all residents of Saskatoon and surrounding areas to participate in a Remembrance Day ceremony to honor the fallen and commemorate the brave.
The honourable member for Malpeque.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in the House to recognise all of those who participated in any number of ways in the municipal elections held on Monday, November 3rd on PEI. This, in fact, was the first time all incorporated municipalities held elections at the same time. I would especially like to congratulate all the candidates themselves. Whether successful in winning their ward or not, democracy is the victor. Running as a candidate at any level of government is both a challenging and rewarding experience. My sincere thanks to all who ran for putting their name on the ballot, their ideas forward in an open debate, and in trying to enhance and improve their community. A high number of quality individuals put their names forward, and each and every one of them should be proud of their efforts to engage, contribute, serve, and better their community. To conclude, I'm sure I have the support of the House in wishing all candidates, new and re-elected members, all the best in your duties going forward.
The honourable member for Selkirk Interlake.
Mr. Speaker, just 1 week after the Ukrainian parliamentary elections, the Kremlin-backed terrorist groups of the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republic held pseudo-elections in eastern Ukraine that were illegal and illegitimate. Ballots were cast in the presence of armed men, and information was actively spread that those who did not come to vote would be deemed disloyal and judged according to martial law. Pensioners were told that in order to receive their pensions, they would have to come to voting precincts to confirm their residence. The National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine say that the results of the election have no meaning. There are no official voters lists, Russian soldiers voted in Donetsk and Luhansk, and there was voting in Russia. The Security Service of Ukraine stated that these events in terrorist-controlled Donetsk and Luhansk are an act of violence against Ukrainian citizens. This election was a farce conducted by coercion, at gunpoint, and is in violation of the expression of the people's true will. Canada will never recognize this election and continues to call upon President Putin to stop the illegal occupation and invasion of Ukraine.
The honourable member for Thunder Bay Rainy River.
Mr. Speaker, like many families on Remembrance Day, we remember those who are serving, modern veterans, and those who went before them. My two grandfathers both served in the First World War. Just before 1914, my one grandfather lost both his wife and child in childbirth. He was among the first to join the war effort. He entered the war a private, and through battlefield commissions ended the war a lieutenant colonel. My other grandfather, a minister, was a pacifist and refused to bear arms. But he believed in the war effort and spent much of the war as a stretcher bearer on the front lines. The story of my grandfathers is the story of many Canadians. They were very different men with very different beliefs, but both stepped forward in service of our country, our people, and our values when they were threatened. On behalf of my constituents, from all different backgrounds and beliefs, I would like to thank our active personnel, veterans, and your families for your service and for your sacrifice, lest we forget.
The honourable member for Edmonton East.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to recognize 33 youthful delegates who have visited with us for the past 7 weeks. They're here in members' offices to gain valuable perspectives of Canada's most important democratic institution, the Parliament of Canada. These young people, representing the Canada-Ukraine parliamentary program, embody the highest ideals of achievement and community service. They are the future leaders of Ukraine. Young people like Mikhailo Alexienko from my office. Canada and Ukraine are inextricably linked forever by migration. Fully 1 in 30 Canadians are of Ukrainian descent, as are my wife, daughters, and granddaughters. Ukraine holds a special place in the hearts of Canadians. Canada was the first country in the Western world to accord diplomatic recognition in 1991 to an independent Ukraine. As the young emissaries depart, we wish them well and say to them, Manai Hayekta.
The honourable member for Saskatoon-Humboldt.
Matthew Bunko was born March 9, 1918, on the family farm near Humboldt, Saskatchewan. He purchased his own land in the fall of 1941. Then on November 4th of that year, he was called to serve his country. After basic training in Winnipeg and Nanaimo as a private with the Rocky Mountain Rangers, he left for action to recapture Kiska Island in the North Pacific on August 15, 1943. After 6 months, he was sent overseas with the South Saskatchewan Regiment to England, Holland, and Germany until his discharge January 24, 1946. He returned home to farm on October 10, 1948. He married Myrna Kaminsky. Together they raised 5 children on their farm. Matthew and Myrna Bunko both reside at St. Mary's Villa, the long-term care facility in Humboldt. They recently celebrated their 66th anniversary. Mr. Bunko, the Parliament and people of Canada, thank you for your service. We thank you for what you were willing to give, where you were willing to go, and what you were willing to do.
The Honourable Member for Terrebonne-Blainville. Mr. Speaker, we're presently in the midst of Media Literacy Week, which is organized by Abilo Media and the Canadian Teachers Federation. Activities will unfold in every corner of the country until Friday with the aim of demonstrating to Canadian youth that they really can familiarize themselves with social media. Of all digital platforms, we know there are all very powerful tools and can be used for good causes, but unfortunately they're often used for bullying, online misogyny, and to propagate hate speech. In order to counter the negative aspects of online communication, Media Literacy Week will invite participants to explore social media and how to use it wisely. This week, with 100 organizations working across the country in partnership, youth will be able to develop digital skills and contribute positively to the development of their communities. Let's use this week to encourage young Canadians to make a positive use of digital technologies. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Brampton-Springdale.
Mr. Speaker, this year marks the 30th anniversary for the tragic massacre of Sikhs in India in 1984. Thousands of Sikh men, women, and children were tortured and brutally murdered in New Delhi and other parts of India. This massacre of Sikhs was a deliberate and calculated act by the perpetrators responsible. In 2009, the New Delhi High Court proclaimed that though we boast of being the world's largest democracy, the sheer mention of the incident of 1984 anti-Sikh riots in general and a role played by the Delhi police and the state machinery in particular makes our head hang in shame. Mr. Speaker, these were not just the fundamental human rights issues. Sikhs around the world call for answers for this senseless killing and a justice for the victims of this tragedy. I call on all members of this House to join me in condemning this atrocity and remembering the victims of 1984. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Pierrefonds-Dollard. Mr. Speaker, I am very pleased to invite the women of the West Island of Pierrefonds-Dollard to the forum in my riding this Sunday, the 9th. At this forum, the female citizens of the West Island will have a place to discuss specific issues that are close to their hearts. For example, accessibility to jobs for women over 50, domestic violence, and community services for seniors.
Conclude our Women's Forum with a delicious multicultural buffet prepared by the Community Kitchen of Pierrefonds Community Project, the Hindu Mandir, Wibka, and members of the Sikh community of Pierrefonds-Dollard. I'm grateful for their contribution. Je remercie mon équipe.
I thank my team, my volunteers, the community organizations of the West Island, the Centre de Ressources Communautaires, and the other organizations, all of them who have worked so hard on this.
Pour leur participation à la réalisation.
For their participation in this 5th forum for the women of the West Island. I look forward to seeing you on Sunday.
Seeing you this Sunday. Merci, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Essex.
Mr. Speaker, our government has announced 4 new measures: the family tax cut, an enhanced and expanded universal child care benefit and children's fitness tax credit, and an increase in the child care expense deduction. A family prosperity plan that will benefit 100% of families with children in Canada, low and medium income families, 1-earner and 2-earner families, single parents, working parents. Each and every family with children will be better off thanks to our new measures to reduce taxes for Canadians from coast to coast to coast. Under our plan, Canadian families will receive an average benefit of more than $1,100. But the Liberal leader has pledged to reverse our tax relief and force all families with children to pay more. And the Liberal leader's borrow and spend plan will only mean higher deficits and more taxes on Canadian families. Unlike the Liberal leader who will raise taxes, our Conservative government is giving money where it belongs, back to hardworking Canadian families.
The Honourable Member for St. Paul's.
Mr. Speaker, next week is Family Doctor Week. I'm proud to stand in the House to acknowledge the outstanding contribution of family doctors to Canadians' quality of life. I'd also like to take this opportunity to highlight the upcoming Family Medicine Forum, which will take place in Quebec City from November 12th to 15th, celebrating the 60th anniversary of the College of Family Physicians of Canada. Family doctors understand the importance of patient-centered care, and access to a family doctor defines the haves and the have-nots in our healthcare system. I'd personally like to acknowledge the tremendous care provided to our family by our family doctors, Jean Marmorio and Ray Lake. And I encourage all Canadians to take time to recognize their family doctors' dedication to their patients and the crucial role they play in access and advocacy for health and quality health care. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Ancaster, Dundas, Flamborough, Westdale.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday Human Rights Watch released a disturbing report which suggests that the terrorist group ISIL abducted more than 150 children and systematically abused and tortured them over a period as long as 6 months. These children were forced to undergo intense religious indoctrination. Those who did not conform to this coercion were beaten with cables. This is in addition to a video purporting to show a number of ISIL fighters discussing, in an all too familiar manner, a modern-day slave market where Yazidi girls are bought and sold as property. These are absolutely shocking developments and further proof of the fact that ISIL is a depraved and barbaric organization that needs to be confronted with military force. This is precisely why the Canadian Armed Forces are involved in the fight against ISIL. Our CF-18s recently destroyed engineering equipment being used by ISIL to flood villages and roads near Baghdad. Because of the efforts of our armed forces, ISIL's capability to further terrorize this area has been substantially degraded. We thank the men and women in uniform of the Canadian Armed Forces, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Algoma, Manitoulin, Kapuskasing.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After years of inaction by federal and provincial governments, New Democrats are working to get the job done on the Ring of Fire. Yeah. Today, the Leader of the Opposition announced the appointment of Howard Hampton as the NDP Leader's special advisors on the project. This once-in-a-generation opportunity for Northern Ontario should mean thousands of good jobs and economic development that will transform our region. But the Conservatives haven't shown leadership. Yeah. That means no new jobs, no investment, and refusing to work with First Nations and communities, Mr. Speaker. Almost all of the Conservatives' Ring of Fire announcements have failed to materialize, and Northerners are fed up. There are important infrastructure challenges to address. Skills development and worker training are also vital. Good thing the NDP understands the importance of this development, and Howard knows how to help get results. So in 2015, an NDP government can finally get this job done.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Northeast.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians were shocked by the horrific terrorist attacks that occurred on 20th and 22nd near Montreal and in Ottawa and had claimed the lives of 2 Canadian Armed Forces members. Canadians from coast to coast to coast came together not only to mourn, but to also deliver a message. We will never be intimidated by these cowardly and despicable actions. Right. Our allies, such as the President of France and the U.S. Secretary of State, have stood by us, recognizing these heinous acts as terrorist attacks. Mr. Speaker, Canada has never and will never bow to aggressors who wish to change our way of life. Our Conservative government understands the seriousness terrorism poses to the world and within Canada. We will not be intimidated and will continue fight against terrorism in all its forms.
Oral questions. Questions orales. The Honourable Member for Halifax.
The Governor of the Bank of Canada was harsh in his criticism of the Conservatives' performance, particularly when it comes to manufacturing. Under the Conservatives, exports are down in 500 categories. Over 400,000 manufacturing jobs have been lost. What's worse, according to Mr. Polaz, the damage is permanent. Why are the Conservatives turning their backs on manufacturing?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, this government is focused on what's important to all Canadians, jobs and economic growth. Over 1.1 million net new jobs have been created since the recession. The IMF predicts that Canada's economy will be one of the highest growing in the G7 in the near future. The economy is in good shape. The Honourable Member for Halifax. Does the Finance Minister agree with the Governor of the Bank of Canada's statement that young people should be willing to work for free and live at home with their parents? The Honourable Finance Minister. Mr. Speaker, Canada will remain one of the G7 countries with the lowest youth unemployment rate. Since 2006, this government has contributed to 6 million young people acquiring the skills they need to get jobs. Economic growth will help young people acquire skills and become entrepreneurs.
Mr. Speaker, under this Prime Minister, the youth unemployment rate is now 14%. That's double the national average. Conservatives, side by side with Liberals, have watched while a generation of good middle-class jobs disappear. And you know what? They did nothing to help create the next generation of middle-class jobs. The job market is now so dire that the Governor of the Bank of Canada is telling young people that they may have to work for free. Is this really the best that the Conservatives have to offer to a generation of young Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, the NDP have been voting against every job creation measure for youth that we've put forward, and they include investing $330 million per year through the Youth Employment Strategy, supporting more paid internships for recent post-secondary graduates, helping young entrepreneurs, as I mentioned, by investing more in Canadian Youth Business Foundation and more. The opposition would introduce crippling new taxes which would kill all the job prospects for youth and all Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
Speaker, they're offering nothing, and a generation of young Canadians are paying the price. Childcare is another pressing economic issue. Families are now paying as much as $2,000 a month. Young people graduating into a dismal job market are worried about the cost of raising kids. And the Conservative response? Borrow $3.1 billion to help wealthy families. Will Conservatives shelve the tax cut for the few and finally deliver on their promise of 125,000 new childcare spaces?
There we go. The Honourable Minister of Employment.
We're doing a lot better than that. We've created the universal child care benefit that is providing benefits to nearly 2 million Canadian families with kids, and now we're expanding it. We're expanding it to all children between the ages of 6 and 18. This means, Mr. Speaker, that under our plan, 4 million Canadian families with children will receive support for their child care choices. Mr. Speaker, that is 100% of families with kids under 18, unlike the multi-billion-dollar government knows best bureaucratic NDP daycare scheme that will benefit fewer than 10% of families with kids, Mr. Speaker.
In 2006, the Prime Minister promised parents he'd create precisely 125,000 childcare spaces across Canada. So, Mr. Speaker, precisely how many of those childcare spaces did Conservatives create? I'd like to give the Minister a hint. The answer begins with the letter Z.
Well, Mr. Speaker, here are the facts. We've increased transfers to the provinces by 50%. They've created over 175,000 more childcare spaces, which is in their jurisdiction. But, Mr. Speaker, here's what else we're doing. Every single parent in Canada with children under the age of 18 will receive a benefit from our universal childcare benefit increase, as well as our expanded family tax credit. Mr. Speaker, because we believe that parents know what's best for their children. We believe it's not a party or an ideology, Mr. Speaker. It's mom and dad. That's who we trust.
The Honourable Member for Papineau.
Mr. Speaker, income splitting will not help 85% of Canadian households.
Right.
Income splitting won't benefit 2.4 million two-parent families, and it won't benefit any single-parent families. How can the minister pretend income splitting is all about families when he knows full well that the vast majority of parents will get absolutely nothing?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the premise of the question is absolute rubbish. In fact, 1.7 million Canadian families with kids, that's nearly half of the families with kids under 18, will benefit from income splitting, and 100% of families, that's 4 million, will benefit from the total tax package and benefit package announced by the Prime Minister last week that will deliver an average net benefit of nearly $1,200 for the average family with children. And, Mr. Speaker, 2/3 of those benefits go to low and modest income families, Mr. Speaker. We are going to give families tax relief. We're going to help them with their kids as opposed to delivering that money through an expensive government bureaucracy.
The Jobs Minister up because the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister in the past week haven't been able to say the words income splitting in this House. They are running from their own policy. They clearly don't want to draw attention to the fact that 85% of Canadian households get absolutely nothing from this plan. Will the minister acknowledge that his income-splitting plan only benefits a small minority of Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Well, Mr. Speaker, in fact, it benefits an enormous number of those with children, and that's who we're focused on, Mr. Speaker. I want to remind the leader of the Liberal Party of his own finance critic's commitment, the member for King's Hants, who said in his 2003 leadership platform that the tax system that treats single income or dual incomes identically under the tax system should be ended in order to stop penalizing Canadian single income families. This is about fairness, Mr. Speaker. This is about treating families as an economic unit. This is about ending discrimination against some families who make sacrifices for their kids, Mr. Speaker. We support the choices of Canadian parents.
The honourable member for Papineau.
Speaker, our finance critic was misguided enough to be a Conservative.
Apparently the minister doesn't understand my question.
For Papineau has the floor. Order. The honourable member for Papineau.
The Conservatives are spending $2 billion on their proposed income-splitting scheme, but it won't apply to 85% of Canadian households. Does the minister understand that income splitting, quite simply, isn't a good idea for Canadian families? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, as I said, 2/3 of families who will benefit from these changes are low and middle income families. The Liberal Party's policy is clear. They want to take away all these tax breaks, all these benefits for children and families. Just like they want to take away income splitting from seniors. We support Canadian families and their choices, Mr. Speaker, not like the Liberal Party. The Honourable Member for Pierrefonds-Dollard. Mr. Speaker, the minister's reaction to a court decision and changes to the interim federal health care program, there seems to be some confusion. The court ordered that the old program be put back to the way it was in 2012. Can the minister confirm that that is indeed what he intends to do? The Honourable Minister of Immigration. Mr. Speaker, the honourable member is unfortunately wrong. We did what had to be done to comply with the court decision, but we remain disappointed and we will appeal. And we have a question for the NDP, Mr. Speaker. Do they know what a genuine refugee is? Are they really suggesting that someone whose refugee claim has been rejected, someone whose claim has been found to be illegitimate, do they think that's a refugee? Because it isn't, Mr. Speaker. Neither legally nor morally, and our government will continue to defend the interests of taxpayers. The Honourable Member for Pierrefonds-Dollard. Mr. Speaker, it's hard to believe what we're hearing. It's not just the NDP that says this, it's the court that says that changes to the refugee health care program are cruel and unusual. It's not us saying it, it's the Court of Appeal saying it. The court. We don't really care how the government feels. We want them to comply with the court decision. So will the minister finally respect our courts and see to it that refugees and their children have access to proper, appropriate health care? The Honourable Minister of Immigration. Mr. Speaker, we respect the court's decision even though we don't agree with it. But we have another question for the NDP. On their side, are they respecting Canadians? Because yesterday, twice, and today again, what they're saying is that we took health care away from refugees. We never did that, Mr. Speaker. What the NDP wants to do is provide higher quality health care to failed refugee claimants than Canadian citizens get. That's what we're against, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, that minister's disdain for some of the most vulnerable people in our society is on full view today, and it's not a pretty sight, Mr. Speaker. First, he refused to accept when the federal court ruled his actions were unconstitutional. Then he continued his attack by using the omnibus budget bill to sneak changes that would take social assistance away from refugees. Now he's refusing to fully respect the court's decision on refugee health care. What does this minister have against refugees?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Well, Mr. Speaker, there he goes again. Does the member opposite have any respect either for Canadians or for the English language? Because there is no case, Mr. Speaker, when refugees, those determined to be so by our independent Immigration and Refugee Board or by the UNHCR and then resettled to Canada, has failed to receive health care under this government. And they will continue, refugees, to receive health care. What the NDP is asking for, Mr. Speaker, and we really prove it unbelievable, is that people whose claims were found to be false, people whose claims were found to be fraudulent, people who are waiting to be removed from Canada should receive better health care than Canadians themselves.
The Honourable Member for Davenport.
That's wrong, and wrong, Mr. Speaker. The federal court and the federal court of appeal could not have been more clear. Conservatives' treatment of refugees was deemed inequitable, unconstitutional, and yes, causing refugees harm, Mr. Speaker. But instead of fully restoring the interim federal health program, the minister is playing politics, deciding some people get it and some people don't. Why won't he just respect the court's decision and restore health care to refugees?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Refugee health care has been in place all along. It remains in place. Even the member for Markham Unionville gets that, Mr. Speaker, as he said yesterday. The federal court gets that. If you read their decision, they understand that the issues they were pronouncing upon relate to claimants, not to those whose claims have been found to be legitimate and have refugee status. Mr. Speaker, the honourable member should stand in this House, acknowledge that he has been misleading Canadians, acknowledge that he is asking for better health care for fraudulent claimants, for failed claimants, for those who are about to leave Canada, Mr. Speaker. We don't think that's appropriate.
The Honourable Member for Longueuil, Pierre Boucher. Mr. Speaker, the Heritage Minister for weeks now would have us believe that the decision to cut 1 in 4 jobs at CBC Radio-Canada came from the corporation's senior management. How can the minister claim the corporation is arm's length when 9 of 12 directors are contributors to the Conservative Party, and when she and her predecessors have been in it up to their elbows in the daily management of the corporation? No one's fooled. The minister's henchmen are just doing her dirty work. The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Mr. Speaker, as I said yesterday, decisions made by Radio-Canada are done independently from the government, but when it comes to appointments, those appointments follow a rigorous, transparent process, and we try to find the most competent people to meet the needs of those positions. The government never interferes in the democratic rights of those who are on those boards of directors, and to say that we're taking away their right to vote, that, Mr. Speaker, that's false. The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Pierre Boucher. 9 out of 12 isn't bad, eh? CBC Radio-Canada is an important cultural institution for Canada and Quebec, especially for Quebec. It's no overstatement to say it's been one of the main means of self-expression for Quebecers. The directors are surely aware of this legacy, but unfortunately, the Conservatives prefer to appoint their own cronies to the board, 9 out of 12. Their henchmen are there to dismantle the public broadcaster, and they couldn't care less about the impact on our culture. When will the minister admit that she and her government are the true culprits in this whole mess? The Honourable Minister of Heritage.
I have to say I'm absolutely ashamed of what was just said with regards to some of the members of this board. These are volunteers who come forward to enter into a competition. It's based on merit. They have the competencies that are required. And in fact, I want to cite the competencies of one of the board members who is a board member from Quebec named Pierre Gingras, who was in fact the mayor from Blainville from 1993 to 2005, and he brings a vast wealth of experience in both economic development and business administration. Shame on that member for insulting his competencies.
It's the government's actions that are shameful. Radio-Canada is the driver of television production in Quebec, and in many places, it's the only source of news production. The minister and her predecessors have taken over control of CBC Radio-Canada. The minister has undertaken to gut our public broadcaster. 1 in 4 jobs have been cut. How is the minister defending culture in Canada? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, CBC Radio-Canada is run independently. When we're talking about the right to respect for both official languages by broadcasters, we're talking about a broadcaster here where the public broadcaster, this is part of their DNA to do that. As the president said, Hubert Lacroix, they have to prove that they're going to discharge their mandate under the Broadcasting Act. Another Canadian value. I can't believe my ears when I hear the minister saying that Canadian values do not include providing basic health care to the most vulnerable, like children. In 1986, Canada received the UN High Commission for Refugees Nansen Award in recognition of the significant contribution of the Canadian people to the refugee cause. How can the minister explain Canada going from an example to a country that mistreats refugees under this government? The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Canada's commitment to the most vulnerable remains clear. We continue to resettle 1 in 10 refugees worldwide who find a new home every year, and our commitment to maternal, newborn, and children's health under the leadership of this Prime Minister is second to none, and second to none in history. What remains scandalous, Mr. Speaker, is that this party, and it is only the NDP this week, who are asking for generous healthcare that goes beyond what Canadians receive, not to go to refugees, not to go to protected persons, not to go to successful claimants, but to go to those who betrayed Canada's trust, who betrayed the generosity of Canada.
The honourable member for Burnaby, New Westminster.
We're talking about children, Mr. Speaker. Now, the minister can protest all he likes, but he cannot change the basic facts. He cannot change the fact it is a core value of Canadians to take care of one another. He cannot change the fact Canadians believe children, families, and all people should be treated equitably, no matter where they come from. And he cannot change the fact the federal court ruled these cuts were cruel and unusual and caused harm to refugees. Why won't this minister accept the facts and end his heartless attacks on refugees and families and children?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, there is no attack on refugees. From this government, there has been unparalleled generosity to refugees and full health care at every step of the way. What we have had from the other side, on the other hand, Mr. Speaker, is disinformation. What we are hearing from the member opposite is that a claimant who was not found to be a refugee, who was not persecuted, who is heading back to their country of origin, should receive better health care than Canadians actually receive, Mr. Speaker. That is not generosity, and that certainly doesn't uphold another vital Canadian value, which is the rule of law, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Toronto Centre.
Mr. Speaker, according to the Bank of Canada, 200,000 young Canadians can't get work. The situation is so dire, economists are joking that our central bank is following a grim new indicator, the kids living in their parents' basements index. In fact, it's so hard to get a job today that young people are being advised to work for free. This is our lost generation. How can the government justify giving a tax break to wealthy boomers while leaving Canada's young adults behind?
Because they don't care. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, our plan for Canadian families, all 4 million Canadian families with kids, will be tremendously beneficial. The bulk of the benefit will go to low and middle-income families. 25% will go to families earning less than $30,000. They will receive a benefit of $1,200. The opposition wants to take that $1,200 out of their pockets. This is a shameful thing. Our plans are progressive, and we're proud of them.
The honourable member for Kings Hands.
Mr. Speaker.
Order. The honourable member for Kings Hands has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, the late Jim Flaherty said, quote, "I think income splitting needs a hard analytical look to see who benefits from it, because I'm not sure overall it benefits our society." Perhaps Mr. Flaherty was thinking about people in his riding. There are 5,700 single-parent families in the riding of Whitby-Oshawa who won't get a dime from income splitting. Why are the Conservatives going ahead with this $2 billion regressive income splitting scheme that does nothing to benefit single-parent families?
The Honourable Minister of Social Development.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the package that he critiqued at that time was a package with no limit. This is a $2,000 limit on the benefit of income splitting. It benefits nearly half of families with kids, and the overall package benefits 100% of families with kids. 2/3 of those benefits go to low and medium income families, an average benefit of nearly $1,200 a year that the Liberals would take away. And Mr. Speaker, let us not forget that that very member stood in this place and called for income splitting because he said that the current tax code is unfair to single income families. Mr. Speaker, he should listen to his own advice.
The honourable member for Kings Hands.
I saw the light, and I followed the guidance of my better angels, who told me that income splitting would only benefit 15% of Canada's wealthiest families. And when I learned that, Mr. Speaker, I knew it was wrong, as did Jim Flaherty. And beyond that, In the riding of Yellowhead, 1 out of every 5 families with children is a single-parent family. So why are the Conservatives taking away a $2 billion tax credit that actually helps single-parent families to pay for a $2 billion income-splitting scheme that leaves these vulnerable families behind?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, the opposite is true. In fact, the remarkable support for families announced by our Prime Minister last week will deliver $1,500 in benefits to a single parent on an income of $30,000. It will deliver $1,000 in benefits to a single parent with $50,000 income, Mr. Speaker. This is the only plan being proposed in this Parliament that benefits 100% of families with children, over 4 million Canadian families, with a focus on low and medium income families. It's why we've seen child poverty now at its lowest level in Canadian history, and the Liberals would take us back, Mr. Speaker. They're wrong.
The Honourable Member for Laurier Sainte-Marie.
Health Organization has been clear. Visa bans for West African countries do not work and can actually increase the spread of the disease. Now the WHO is demanding an explanation from Canada for its misguided policy. And they've received nothing. Why is the minister sidelining the WHO during a global health crisis?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, as the Minister of Health and all of us on this side have been saying, we will do whatever is required to protect public health in this country, to protect the health and safety of Canadians. That is why many months ago we began discouraging Canadians from traveling to Ebola-affected countries because of the potential risk to them and to Canada. We are simply being consistent here, Mr. Speaker. We are discouraging new travelers from coming from Ebola-affected countries, and we will continue to take these precautionary measures to ensure the safety and health of Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Laurier Sainte-Marie.
Is that policy just does not work. Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, if the government doesn't want to send doctors to West Africa to help deal with the crisis, couldn't it at least help people like Mr. Perra? Mr. Perra, a resident of Longueuil, adopted last summer a young girl in Sierra Leone, and her file is currently in the bureaucratic limbo created by the Conservatives. Mr. Perra is very concerned about her and wants to bring her as quickly as possible. Will the minister help Mr. Perra? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I just provided some details on that case to my colleagues opposite. The legal process for completing an adoption weren't completed in that case, so it has nothing to do with Ebola. And to Mr. Speaker, the Privacy Act prevents me from speaking to this matter in greater detail.
BTB Bay James Nunavik AU.
The Honourable Member for BTB James Bay Nunavik EU. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At present, 61% of Aboriginals in their 20s have not completed their secondary school, high school, 61%, compared to 13% in the rest of the population. But as that occurs, the minister stands by and blames others for the failure of his ill-advised project on education. Will the minister acknowledge this failure and respond to requests from the Assembly of First Nations and relaunch discussions with Aboriginal peoples on their education? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, our government was disappointed that the Assembly of First Nations failed to respect the agreement signed with the Government of Canada with respect to elementary and secondary education. Having said that, there are a host of programs that remain to improve the outcomes at the elementary and secondary level on reserve. And as the last budget showed, we are committed to continuing to work with the First Nations to improve the situation.
Well, Mr. Speaker, while the minister refuses to take responsibility for his failure, First Nations schools continue to be woefully underfunded. Approximately 47% of First Nations currently need a new school, and some of those have been, 22% in fact, have been waiting for 10 to 15 years. 10 to 15 years, that's simply unacceptable. Yet the minister continues to ignore this situation. Why is this minister still refusing to provide First Nations children the funding they desperately need and deserve for a quality education?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Mr. Speaker, since 2006, our government has invested over $10 billion to support elementary and secondary education for about 118 First Nation students. In addition, during that period, we've invested approximately $1.7 billion for just school infrastructure. So I think we're on the right path, and we will continue in that direction.
The Honourable Member for Peace River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. According to Human Rights Watch, the terrorist group ISIL have abducted, tortured, and abused more than 150 Kurdish children over the past 6 months. Captured children describe being forced to undergo intense religious indoctrination and being beaten with cables if they didn't comply. In recent videos, ISIL fighters seem to brag about buying and selling Yazidi girls on the open slave market. Mr. Speaker, these atrocities cannot be allowed to continue. Can the Minister of National Defence please update this House on Operation Impact and on Canada's contribution to the fight against these barbaric terrorists?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, it seems every day we hear new reports of the malicious and despicable acts that ISIL is committing across the Middle East. Recently, Canada's CF-18s attacked and destroyed engineering equipment that was being used by ISIL to divert the Euphrates River. ISIL's intent was to flood roads and villages and to divert traffic onto roads that they could then mine with improvised explosive devices. Depriving ISIL of the means to commit mass atrocities is exactly why the Canadian Armed Forces are involved with this fight. I again want to thank and commend our men and women in uniform for their efforts in this successful strike.
The Honourable Member for Newton, North Delta.
Food banks report that almost half of the food bank users are families with children. Child poverty won't be solved through what Food Banks Canada calls an alphabet soup of programs. It is time for the federal leadership to eliminate child poverty. Canadian children deserve no less. Will this government finally listen and take a comprehensive approach to eliminate poverty for children and their families by supporting our motion M534?
The Honourable Minister of State.
Mr. Speaker, since 2006, we've lifted over 225,000 children out of poverty. In fact, Mr. Speaker, UNICEF recently reported that actually during the heights of the recession, we lifted over 180,000 children out of poverty. How did we do that? Through our tax measures and our benefits for families. Specifically cited was the universal tax benefit, which we are increasing and expanding to help every single family in Canada with children. I would expect the opposition to support that so that we can continue to help children who are experiencing poverty. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Joliette. The Honourable Member for Joliette. 1 million children are living in poverty. That's nothing to boast about. Each month, 840,000 people in Canada have had to turn to a food bank for help. What's most alarming about that is that 1/3 of those people were children. We proposed a plan for affordable daycare to give Canadian families a break. Why are the Conservatives refusing to help low-income families with children?
The Honourable Minister of State.
Mr. Speaker, I think Canadian families are collectively shaking their heads at the NDP when we have a plan that UNICEF has said help lift 225,000 children out of poverty by directly putting money into the pockets of Canadian families. The NDP the only plan that they have is very expensive and it would take money out of their pockets. Mr. Speaker, Canadian families can trust this Prime Minister, this Minister of Finance, this government to keep putting their money into their pockets, not into government coffers.
The Honourable Member for Parkdale High Park.
Monsieur le Président, rapport. Mr. Speaker, A TD Bank report has shown that the participation of women in the workforce is at its lowest level since 2002, and this reduction is threatening our economic growth. We proposed a plan for affordable childcare that would enable thousands of women to return to the workforce. In this context, why are the Conservatives introducing backward measures like income splitting?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Member is suggesting that women, men and women, mothers and fathers who work at home are not workers, and we don't agree with that idea, Mr. Speaker. However, we know that fathers and mothers who work with young people at home are important workers. They are productive, and they are people who are raising the future generations, and that is why we are providing them with support. We support 4 million families with children with the package of reforms that we announced last week.
Honourable Member for Parkdale High Park.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the impact of childcare on women's workforce participation is clear. Quebec's childcare program allowed 70,000 women to return to the workforce. The Conservatives' wasteful income splitting plan would have the exact opposite effect and discourage women from working at a time when women's workforce participation is already sliding. Why put up more barriers, Mr. Speaker? Why are they so opposed to policies like childcare that help women enter and remain in the workforce?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has the highest rate of female participation in the labour force in the G20. But, Mr. Speaker, what the member is suggesting really describes the NDP mentality. The NDP does not believe that dads and moms who spend some time at home with their young kids to raise them are in the workforce. We could not disagree more profoundly, Mr. Speaker. They are working. They're working to raise their children, Mr. Speaker. And they're making sacrifices very often to do it. And this is the problem with the NDP approach. It denigrates those families and their choices. It says they're not working. It says they don't deserve support. It wants to tax those families and force them to take only one option, and they're wrong.
Honourable Member for Charlottetown.
Mr. Speaker, can you imagine the Americans changing the name of the George Washington Bridge and calling it the Babe Ruth Bridge? All Canadians admire Maurice Richard, who was of Acadian origin. There are many ways to celebrate the rocket, but not by changing the name of the Champlain Bridge. Does the Prime Minister need to be reminded that Samuel de Champlain is at the base of our history, that Champlain founded Canada, and that without Champlain, Canada as we know it would not even exist?
What happened to Minister of Infrastructure?
The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, never will our government imperil the historic recognition of one person over another, people who have marked our history. That is not something our government would do. Mr. Speaker, having said that, what we will do is build a bridge that wasn't maintained when the Liberals were in power. We announced on October 5th, 2011, we would build a bridge, that it will be ready in 2018 for the Greater Montreal area.
In 2012, the government ended the $4 million Cooperative Development Initiative, the only national program for co-ops. In January 2013, the government announced a $400 million Venture Capital Action Plan. To date, the investment funds that have received contributions under this program have not made any investments in co-ops. Also, Futurepreneur Canada receives $10 million annually to fund business ventures by young entrepreneurs. However, they cannot provide capital to young cooperators. Why is the playing field so uneven? Why are these two federal programs not allowed to provide funds to help create cooperative businesses?
The Honourable Minister of State.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to acknowledge that member, along with the member from Elgin, Middlesex, London, for the strong work that they have done over the years on cooperatives. I think that leadership was important. But as that member would know very well, for over 100 years, cooperatives have been a fundamental part of communities across the country. They create jobs, promoting growth. Let me say about our action plan. Our government has launched a 4-point action plan to support the growth and innovation of cooperatives across Canada. And that's a review of Industry Canada's programs to identify obstructions that any cooperative would have. We think that's great news for cooperatives, and we'd like to celebrate them. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Brassard-la-Prairie. Mr. Speaker, the Minister just said that he deplores the debate on the bridge, but he's the one that started it in the first place. And he's the one who's so keen on finding a new name when all they're doing is replacing the bridge. Will the Minister focus on his real responsibilities, transparency with respect to the tendering process, and to prevent causing traffic jams because of his toll booth he wants to put in place? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, the premises of that question are false. The Champlain Bridge, Mr. Speaker, is maintained as it must be in partnership with the Société des Ponts. They voted against the hundreds of millions of dollars that we've devoted to maintaining the bridge. And after that, they're saying that Champlain is important for them. They haven't lifted a finger to do anything about it. We are going to continue to build the new bridge over the St. Lawrence, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Brassard-la-Prairie. We forced the government to commit to rebuilding that bridge. That's what we did, Mr. Speaker. In Quebec, the position is unanimous. People love Maurice Richard, but they think it's ridiculous to change the name of the Champlain Bridge. The Minister should stop creating false debates and get back to the essential issue here. Can he tell us if he will sit down with the representatives of the Greater Montreal area to talk about the toll that he plans to put on the Champlain Bridge? The Honourable Minister. On October 5th, 2011, we announced that a new bridge would be built over the St. Lawrence River. It's a new bridge, a new investment between $3 and $5 billion. It will create, Mr. Speaker, 30,000 jobs. 30,000 jobs in the Montreal region while it's being built. When we announced it, we said that it would be a toll bridge and there would also be public transit, and that it would be prepared or built as a part of a PPP. We are delivering the goods.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday Skills Canada launched National Skills, Trades and Technology Week. Now in its 10th year, this event creates awareness for young Canadians about good career opportunities in skilled trades and technologies across Canada, with growing demand for workers in the skilled trades. Can the Minister of Employment update this House on what the government is doing to help young Canadians who want to pursue these careers?
Honourable Minister of Employment.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker, to the member from Saskatoon for his great question. This government has made record investments in encouraging young Canadians to pursue great vocations, lifetime careers in the trades, Mr. Speaker. That's why we created the Apprenticeship Incentive Grant, $2,000 a year for those who enter the trades, the Apprenticeship Completion Grant, another $2,000 when they complete. And we've provided these to hundreds of thousands of young Canadians, Mr. Speaker. The employer tax credit for hiring apprentices, and, of course, the tool tax credit. Most recently, the Canada Apprenticeship Loan that provides interest-free financing to apprentice students, because we believe that apprentices are worth every bit as much as the...
Mr. Speaker, this past August, the UN Convention on the Law of the Non-Navigational Uses of International Watercourses came into force after Vietnam ratified the convention. Why has Canada not ratified the convention? Why did Canada, a water nation, leave it to Vietnam to trigger the conventions coming into force? Canada should be an international leader on water issues. Why aren't we?
Great question. The Honourable Prime Minister, Secretary of the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Speaker, Canada has always fulfilled its international obligations, and it will continue working with the United Nations and with other countries to ensure that we are a responsible world citizen, Mr. Speaker. And as to answering that question, I will get back to him in due course of time. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Victoria.
The Conservatives are all talk and no action when it comes to tackling tax evasion. Most Canadians pay their fair share, Mr. Speaker, but the Canada Revenue Agency acknowledged last year alone it collected just 1% of the $220 million it lost to tax cheats. This amid reports that Canada is backing down on its commitment it made to the OECD to actually go after international corporations who avoid paying their fair share. Mr. Speaker, why does this minister show so little commitment to really tackling international tax cheats?
The Honourable Minister of National Revenue.
Mr. Speaker, through successive budgets, we have continued to invest heavily in CRA's tax collection programs, including a $30 million investment in Budget 2013. From 2006 to March 31st of this year, CRA audited over 8,600 international tax cases, identifying and in the process of collecting $5.6 billion of additional taxes. As a result of our aggressive action on this file, Canada now has one of the most extensive tax treaty networks in the world, with 92 tax treaties and 21 tax information exchange agreements.
The Honourable Member for Pickering, Scarborough East.
Mr. Speaker, today in a fitting tribute to the Remembrance Day, the Minister of Veteran Affairs and the representative from each party will make their Remembrance Day address in Parliament. Shortly thereafter, veterans stakeholders will meet in Toronto for the annual True Patriot Love Foundation dinner. Will the Minister of Veteran Affairs take a moment to speak about this important organization and how they support Canadian veterans?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Thank the Honourable Mr. Speaker. I thank the Honourable Member for his question. And tonight I will in fact join veterans and serving members of the Canadian Armed Forces and many leading Canadian corporations and other Canadians at the True Patriot Love Foundation event in Toronto. Started by Sean Francis and our very own Member of Parliament from Durham, the True Patriot Love Foundation has gone on to support veterans and their families through numerous efforts, including championing for improved employment opportunities and research, and much more. On behalf of a grateful nation, we say thank you, and we will not forget.
The Honourable Member for Quebec. As part of the 150th anniversary of Confederation, Quebec City wants to host some 40 tall ships. It's a wonderful opportunity to promote tourism and to showcase the beauty of the St. Lawrence River. Quebec City presented its project to the government in May 2013. And if the Conservatives don't guarantee the funds between now and February 2015, the event will be compromised. When will the government finally buy into this major tourism project and financially support the Quebec City tall ships? We'd like to hear a date, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Minister. Thank you again, Mr. Speaker. When we talk about the 150th anniversary of Confederation, we're talking about an event that will be celebrated across the country. We are still waiting for an announcement, and we encourage all municipalities and all provinces and organizations to plan their events so that we can celebrate this event with great pride. Now, with respect to that event, we're moving towards 2017 and we're looking at these issues.
Go filings.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Earlier today, a number of us parliamentarians gathered to call on the Prime Minister in his upcoming visit to China to take action on the particularly distressing, indeed appalling case of Canadian citizen and also Chinese citizen Dr. Wang Zhang, who's been in solitary confinement for 12 years. He's a political activist, a dissident. He stands for democracy. He was illegally arrested in Vietnam and taken by force to the People's Republic of China. There are thousands and thousands of cases that call out for action from the People's Republic of China. But can the Prime Minister assure us that in this instance he will do everything possible to obtain Dr. Wang's return to Canada?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, we are aware of the case. The promotion of human rights is an integral part of the Canadian foreign policy. These issues have been raised in the context of our open and frank relationship with China. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That concludes question period for today. I understand the Honourable Member for Peterborough is rising on a point of personal privilege.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, proceeding to Standing Order 20, I would like to rise on a point of personal privilege, and I appreciate the opportunity to do so. Mr. Speaker, colleagues here in the House, first and foremost, I want to say that I hold this place in the highest of regards. Today, coming to this place and to this building, as I have many times, I have never once taken that for granted. The trust, the honor, the distinction to serve in this House of Parliament, in the nation that I hold out, is the finest in the world, is an honor that each and every one of us uniquely hold, and something that we should never, ever take for granted. Mr. Speaker, I'm from Peterborough. I am Peterborough. I grew up picking stones in the fields of Peterborough County. I love that place. I love everything about it. The people of the riding of Peterborough